Hey guys, it's me today. I'm here with my Bridgerton series discussion. It has been a while since I've done a series discussion, so this is not going to be like my typical ones. I apologize. But I'm talking about the Bridgerton series. I finished the last book a couple of days ago, so I'm sitting down now to talk about them all. I also love how colorful they are. Like, this is the Dutch edition and all of these are UK editions, I believe. So, sorry, this one doesn't match, but the rest, look how colorful it looks. So nice. This is a historical romance companion series in which we follow the 8 Bridgerton siblings as they find love. Each book focuses on a different sibling, and therefore this is going to look a little bit different, as that's all I can give you for a series synopsis. There isn't really a plot that goes throughout all of these books, you know? I'll be having individual quick synopses while talking about each individual book, but let's start this, like always, with a ranking. So going from least favorite to favorite. So putting these like this is much easier. In the last place I have the Duke and I, which is the first book. Then we have To Sir Philip with Love in 7th place. And 6th place we have When He Was Wicked. In 5th place we have It's His Kiss. Then we have An Offer from a Gentleman, which is book 3. And then my top 3 for the series is number 3, On the Way to the Wedding. Then The Viscount Who Loved Me, and my favorite book from the series is Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, which, if you've been on my channel for a while and seen me read these books over the past year in wrap-ups, that isn't a surprise to you. But anyway, so this is my ranking. It's a bit all over the place. I have to say these, I'm like grabbing the right book now, these. So like my top 5, I believe, yes, these are 5 books, are all 5 stars, and then the rest is 4 and 2 3s. So it's a great series. Let's just get into like my individual reviews, where I talk about what the book is about, what I rated it, and why I rated it that way. Everything will be spoiler free. So first book in the series is The Duke and I. This one you might be familiar already with the story because of the Netflix show. The first season follows the events of this book, but in this one we follow Daphne Bridgerton, and this is very different from the show though, is that in the show she's like the most popular one, she's a favorite. In this one she's already been out for a couple of seasons, and most of the guys like see her just as a friend and nothing like as a romantic partner, and she's kind of getting fed up with that because she really wants to get married. And then one day like she comes across Simon, who is a duke, and he has absolutely no desire to get married, but he has to like attend these festivities during the season, and he's kind of tired of constantly like being bombarded with people, like women, who are trying to grab his interest. So he makes a deal with Daphne to kind of like fake a courtship, so people will leave him alone because they think he's otherwise interested, and Daphne will receive more suitors because they will be like, oh my god, she's gonna be stolen away, we need to hurry up, you know? And that's their book. And yeah, I thought this was a great introduction to the series, as it immediately made me fall in love with the Bridgerton siblings. We mainly see the 4 oldest, so Anthony, Benedict, Colin, and Daphne are like the ones we see the most in this, but we also have appearances of Eloise, Hyacinth, and Gregory, but they're just a little bit younger, so it's not like their full personality that we see in their books. But it still made me really fall in love with this family and their dynamics. Also, immediately with Violet. Violet is an amazing mother. She just doesn't know how to give sex ed, but for the rest, she's amazing. And I really loved her. I loved the family in this. And even though I gave this book 2 out of 5 stars, it immediately made me like buy all of the other books because I just was so obsessed with the family, and I wanted more of that. There was quite a lot of cuteness between Daphne and Simon. They had some cute moments, and I did feel like a chemistry between them, but overall I don't think they were compatible to be a couple, because I feel like they both had very different ideas of their futures and what they wanted out of life. And I feel like rather than maybe like realizing they're incompatible or like talking things through and like finding compromises. I feel like both were very much forcing their ideas of the future on the other person in their own ways. Book 2 is The Viscount Who Loved Me. This is Anthony's love story, and in this one Anthony who doesn't want to fall in love. He wants to get married because he has the title of the family, like he's a viscount, so he wants to have children to be able to pass the title down and not like burden his brothers with these duties. So he does feel, so for that reason he does want to get married, but he doesn't want to fall in love because his father died when he was like around this, like a couple of years older than Anthony is in his book. So he doesn't want to fall in love because he feels like his father is superior to him in every way imaginable. So he doesn't think that he will be able to live an older age than his father did. So that's why he like doesn't want to fall in love, because he doesn't want to hurt someone. And this wedding season he has found the perfect girl, who is Edwina. I hope I pronounced that correctly. She is a debutante, and Anthony immediately was like, she's pretty, she's smart, that will make great children, but like there's no way I'm gonna fall in love with her. But that doesn't take into account Edwina's sister, which is Kate, who was also like at her first season, like because they don't have a lot of money, even though Kate is older, they did like a combined season. And Kate has heard of Anthony's like reputation as a wake, and it's like, he's not good enough for my sister, so he is trying to like shoo him away, and of course in the process they fall in love. And I really like this. I really like Anthony was my favorite character in The Duke and I, so I was super excited to get to this book because it is about him, and I really loved him in this book even more. Kate is also an amazing character, and I think their personalities just work really well together. I also really liked how they grew from like their bickering to like having attraction to each other to then acknowledging that attraction and like generally like falling for each other properly. And I really liked how all that was done. I also quite, even though it might sound ridiculous what I said about Anthony not wanting to fall in love because he is expecting to die at an early age like his father was, that might sound ridiculous, but I feel like it was handled really well in this book, and I really liked how it got to see Anthony like struggle with that. And I feel like Anthony is the, even though we talk about the Bridgertons fathers, the grief that they all have, I feel like Anthony, because he is the oldest, he has the best memory of his dad. So I really like how there's a book like discussed that grief as well. I also quite liked Kate's family dynamics because she has a stepmom and a half sister, like Edwina has a half sister, but like her mother also died at a very young age, so that's basically her family, and I really liked how all of that was done. And even like certain scenes with her stepmom were really well done, and I really liked it. And yeah, very big fan of this book, and I'm very nervous what they're going to do with season 2 because I hated Anthony in season 1, so I'm very nervous what they're going to do with season 2 of the show because they're just good, you know. Next we have An Offer from a Gentleman, which follows Benedict, who's the second oldest of the Bridgerton siblings, and this is a Cinderella retelling technically. Sophie is an illegitimate child to an earl, and the earl like took her in and like doesn't acknowledge that like she's actually his daughter, but like everybody basically knows it. And then the earl gets married to this woman who also has 2 daughters, and immediately the woman tries to shut Sophie out because, you know, she's scared that Sophie will receive the entire inheritance. And eventually the earl dies, and in his will basically he says like to the stepmom, like, you only get my money if you take care of Sophie until she's of age. So she does that, but basically by making Sophie a maid in the household. And then in the prologue, like no, not in the prologue, in the beginning of this book, the Bridgertons are hosting a masquerade ball, and Sophie is able to like slip away with the help of the other servants and attend this ball, and she immediately like has a moment with Benedict, and like they spend some time together and they fall in love head over heels. And then we have a time jump of I believe 3 years, and Sophie was kicked out of like her house basically because the stepmom found out about her sneaking out to the ball and is now working someplace else, and she and Benedict happen to cross paths. He ends up kind of like saving her from like the abusive household that she's working in. It's a really, really cute romance. I really like this. I really like the Cinderella retelling aspect to it because it is not super obvious. Like, of course, the setup, it's very much Cinderella, but when you go like into the book, I forgot that it was Cinderella a lot of the times because even though there are like, of course, the elements in it, it wasn't like super heavy-handed or anything, and I quite like that. Especially because none of the other books are retelling, so this one doesn't feel out of place because it doesn't rely too heavily on the retelling elements. And I really liked Sophie as a character as well. I also like Benedict. He has like a passion for art, and Sophie throughout the book like encourages him to like draw more and like paint and like other people see his creations because he's been very like shy about that. So I really like that element to the relationship as well. And there was this period of time where they kind of just like spend time alone, kind of away from society, and not like from high society, not there's less pressure on them in a way, and I really liked those moments that they spent together, and it really worked well for developing their relationship. But then when they get back to high society and like shit kind of goes awry and there are things that are keeping them apart, and I feel like the characters' motivations like make a lot of sense, and I really understood why, like what was keeping them apart. I feel like in a lot of books when like two people in a romance like are obviously in love with each other and like there's something is keeping them apart, I feel like a lot of times the explanation between that isn't well done, and I feel like in this book it was very well done, and I totally understood both the characters' motivations, and I liked how eventually they got together. And again, Violet is a badass in this book. Like, amazing. Next up, my personal favorite romancing Mr. Bridgerton. This one follows Colin and Penelope, and Penelope Featherington has been in love with her best friend's brother for quite some time, a couple of years. And of course that brother is Colin because her best friend is Eloise. And Colin has never really like paid attention to Penelope, and then like Colin like went away for a couple of years like to travel around Europe, and he comes back and he just sees Penelope in a different way than he used to all of a sudden, and it's so cute. Basically, this is basically just Colin falling in love and Penelope, like, she's already in love, you know? So I really loved seeing Colin fall in love, and especially because like they've known each other for years and years and years. So I really liked moments where Colin was like, wait, when did this happen? Like, this is not how it used to be. I really loved this moment. I thought they created for some very cute things, some cute happenings. I really loved their dynamics, just like even before like Colin really started falling. They have a strong friendship, and I really, really like that, especially because Penelope is kind of like the butt of the joke in a lot of the previous books. I mean, our main characters stand up for her, but she's kind of like a wallflower. Nobody thinks she's that pretty and like stuff like that. And then to have Colin, who like generally respects Penelope and her intelligence, I really loved that. Like, even before, like I said, he started falling, like just as friends, he was very like respectful of her, and I love that. And then again, seeing Colin fall for her was amazing, and the romance was just so well done, and I was just like smiling so much throughout this book and like squealing because everything about this is so cute. This book also has a side storyline about Lady Whistledown. Lady Whistledown is basically like this gossip newspaper that is anonymous. It's been written, we know about it since the Duke and I just didn't really mention it. There's like a minor element to it that kind of serves for like storytelling and like for us to find out about gossip outside of the main story in ways. And in this one, basically the entire ton decides to try and figure out who Lady Whistledown is once and for all. So that's a side storyline in this book, and I thought that was really well done. Like, to the point, like, I've been spoiled for who Lady Whistledown was before reading the books, and it was so well done to the point where I started like questioning if my memory was correct. Like, to be honest, my memory isn't fantastic, and I was generally, as they were talking about like different characters, like theories about who Lady Whistledown was, I was generally like, did I just misremember who it is? But I didn't. But I thought all of that was well done, and even like the reveal where the first character figures out who Lady Whistledown is so well done. And then of course like the grand reveal at the end where we all figure out who Lady Whistledown is, amazingly done. Then we have Drusy Philip with Love, which I'm gonna be honest about this one, I was scared about, but let me first give you the plot. This one we follow Eloise, who has happily been a spinster alongside her best friend Penelope. She didn't really care, but one of her relatives passed away and she's been like corresponding with the husband of her relative, like their distant relatives, but just like out of her piety she felt like she had to like send her condolences, and they just kind of started writing to each other. And then a couple of years later, basically at the start of this book, this guy was named Philip is like, hey, I have children, they need a mom. And you know, I like her, like Eloise's personality, like from what I've read, so she sends her like a letter basically saying, hey, would you like to come over to like my house, and that way like we can figure out if we're suitable together and like we could get married. And Eloise agrees to that because Penelope has just gotten married and now she feels lonely and also wants to get married. And she's like, you know, over the letters his personality, I'm not in love, but like he seems like a decent person. So she just like randomly decides to go, and yeah, it's their romance. And I was a bit hesitant about this book because even if we go like just book material, I feel like Eloise was like a strong independent character and I didn't really see her like necessarily like falling with someone else. But for some reason, that made me hesitant about to read this book, but I did it because I thought probably won't be as bad as I imagined, and it wasn't. But also I gave this 3 stars, so I didn't love this. Basically, I love Eloise. I've loved her throughout the entire series. I really liked her in this book as well. I really liked Philip as well. I thought he had like an interesting background, like an interesting backstory, and I liked his dynamics with like his children, and even just like the story of how he met his like now passed away wife. Like the whole incident about that was all very interesting, and I really liked his character as well. I really liked his interactions with Eloise. Like, Eloise had like great interactions, and I liked her dynamics, and I loved Eloise with Philip's children. I thought there's some amazing scenes between them, but I didn't feel any romantic chemistry between Philip and Eloise. And this is not just because of my like imagined ideas of Eloise, let me just say it that way, how I had Eloise in my head before this book. It wasn't there for me, and I don't know, I didn't really feel that sense of them falling in love, which I had with the other books. Next up, we have When He Was Wicked. This one follows Francesca and Michael. Basically, Michael fell in love with Francesca from the first time he saw her. Problem is, a couple of hours after that, Francesca got married to his cousin, who was named John. And basically, this book starts off when Francesca and John have been married for 2 years, and they're both very close with Michael, like just really good friends. And John passes away, and then Francesca and Michael kind of like drift apart as they both just like grieving a lot, and Michael, like out of guilt for like taking the title and everything that was never supposed to be his, like moves away to India. And then we skip, I believe, 4 years. Basically, Francesca desperately wants children, so she's back in London in the season to try and get remarried, and Michael has also finally decided to come back from India to take up on his duties that come with the title that he now has. And yeah, they end up Francesca ends up falling for Michael because Michael was already in love with Francesca, if that makes sense. I really liked this. I thought Michael and Francesca were a great pair. Like, even when they were friends, I thought their dynamics just worked really well. They joked around with each other a lot. I really liked it. I also this one focuses the most on grief, even though, like I said with The Viscount Who Loved Me, there is a lot of Anthony's grief for his father in that, but that isn't the main focus of this book. While I feel like grief is the driving force for like both of these characters throughout this entire book. And I really liked how throughout the entirety of this book they both like showed their love and respect for John throughout the entire thing. Even when they eventually like got together, they still both were like made it obvious that this doesn't mean that they don't love John anymore, which I really liked. I thought it was really well done. I also liked just like Michael being in love with Francesca the entire time. I thought it was really fun. And then the only complaint I have, which is why this is a 4 stars, because I feel like I would have liked to see Francesca fall in love a little bit more. I feel like it was just the first couple of moments where she's starting to see him differently and like noticing upon that, and then all of a sudden it was like, I'm in love with you. And I feel like there was some gradation in between there that I would have loved to see. But for the rest, I really liked this. There was a lot of chemistry between Michael and Francesca that I really liked. It was a cute romance, and yeah, I would have liked to see Francesca fall in love just a tiny bit more than she did in this book. So that's why I docked the star personally. Then we have It's in His Kiss, which follows Hyacinth and Garrett. Basically, at the beginning of this book, we have a little prologue in which Garrett finds out that his father isn't actually his father, so that means his mom like cheated, but like the mom died, and his father like kicks him out of the house and is like, you get no allowance, figure it out. He has spent years like kind of like being on his own, and at the official beginning of this book, Hyacinth and Garrett meet at a Smith musicale. Garrett is also the grandson of Lady Danbury, who is an amazing character in this book. Lady Danbury is also really close with Hyacinth because Hyacinth goes to read for Lady Danbury like every week. And then Garrett basically comes upon a diary of his grandmother, and it's in Italian because that side of his family is Italian, but he doesn't understand Italian. Hyacinth does, and therefore Hyacinth starts to translate the diary for Garrett, and a lot of family secrets come out of this diary. But of course Hyacinth and Garrett also fall in love, and this was great. I really loved Hyacinth as a main character. Like, we have seen her in like small scenes throughout the entire book, like the entire series, so I quite liked her already, but like having her on full shine in this book was fantastic. I really think she's like one of my favorite characters in this series. Like, she's amazing. I had a blast reading from her perspective, and Garrett was also a great main character. I really liked him as well, and I loved the dynamic. Again, I feel like they had great banter even like before both of them started falling, and I liked how even like before they started falling, they were just like hanging out a lot because like she's translating his diary, but like nobody knew about it, so they just see two people hanging out a lot because they want to, and everyone around Hyacinth was just like, do you wish to marry him? Like, do you like him? Like, what's going on? And I really liked that element to it, and I liked how that also got Hyacinth thinking about the aspect. So when she started falling, it was more like a, oh, I expected this. Well, for Garrett, it was a, what's happening? I really liked that contrast, and I thought it was really well done. The moment of their first kiss, there was so much build up to it. I love that so much. I also really liked the like side storyline about the diary and like the family secrets of Garrett in there. There's also a little bit of a mystery element that goes along with it, and I thought that was very well done and very well balanced with the romance. And yeah, I really loved this. Last but definitely not least, On the Way to the Wedding, which is the final book. So in this one we follow Gregory, who is a hopeless romantic because he's seen all of his seven siblings fall in love, marry for love. So he's like, yes, I want to do that too. And then at a house party that's hosted by Anthony and Kate, he like sees this woman across the room, and he immediately is like totally in love with her, and that woman is Hermione. And basically the problem is that basically every guy who's ever seen Hermione feels like they're immediately in love. And also another problem is that Hermione is actually in love with her father's secretary. And then we also follow Lucy, who is Hermione's best friend, and she's used to guys completely falling over Hermione, but she actually doesn't mind because she's practically engaged. Like, she doesn't really, but basically her uncle has made a deal like this all, I believe, to when Lucy is of age for her to marry like the Earl's son. So that's been going on, you know? But Lucy isn't a big fan of Hermione's crush because she knows that Hermione is like very used to this like high society lifestyle, and she doesn't think Hermione will be happy in living in a lower class, or even like living with the scandal that would come with it if she would actually marry her for the secretary. So Lucy sees Gregory's interest and is like, that would actually make a great match for Hermione, and decides to like try and set them up, or like help Gregory in trying to make Hermione fall in love with him. And then of course they end up falling for each other, Lucy and Gregory, and it's amazing. Basically in the first half I was a bit scared, let me say it that way, because the first half like mainly focuses on Lucy trying to set him up with Hermione. So I was very much like, there were moments where both Lucy and Gregory experienced attraction to the other person, and I liked those moments, but and I really liked their banter as they're just like interacting, but I just didn't really have like that sparks moment that I have with other moments in the series, and I was just scared that I wasn't going to be sold on this. But then in the second half, like something happens halfway through and it causes things to shift and for Gregory and Lucy to like properly fall in love. And I feel like when that happens, like I was full on board. Like I could generally see them falling for each other. I felt the chemistry, and I just it was so good. And you need that first half of them being friends and interacting like that for the second half to work so well. So I'm not complaining at all. I want to say that just in case you're reading this book and have the same experience as me, you know it gets better. It really does. I really loved Gregory and Lucy as just like separate characters. I already really started to like Gregory in It's in His Kiss because he shows up in there to like kind of make fun of Hyacinth. And I think from the entire Bridgerton family, I feel like the Hyacinth Gregory dynamic is my favorite of the sibling dynamics because it's just so good. And again, Hyacinth shows up a lot in here as well, and I just really love their relationship. Again, this is a book where the two characters are being kept apart a lot because, like I said, Lucy is already engaged to someone else, and I really liked how that was done. There's a lot of angst in the second half of this book because of that, and I really understood the motivations of the characters when it came to that conflict, and I generally could feel my heart break for both of them because it wasn't an easy situation for them to be in, and I really understood the motivations. So yeah, and then also for some reason like the last couple of pages it gets very action-packed, which none of these books have gotten before, so I was a bit shook, but I genuinely thought it was such a great way to end the story and resolve the conflict, and it was so well done. I really liked it. The books are a bit of a mess behind me, so I'm not gonna hold them up again, but that was my discussion for each individual book. So I do have some overall thoughts which might be already like obvious from all the individual books, but I feel like I still need to wrap this up. Basically, I had a lot of fun with the series. I just was very obsessed with it. I binged it. Like, yes, it took me several months, but for me this is binging a series. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. And even like my least favorite books in the series, I thoroughly enjoyed reading. Like I still had a great time with them. I also really love this family. Like I said, Duke and I does an amazing job at introducing you to this family. And even though like Hyacinth and Gregory like very small children in the first book, and by their like own standalone books, they're much more grown up and the personalities are much more different. But I still feel like that overall family dynamic is present from the beginning, and it carries through the entire series so well. And I really love this family. Overall, there were great characters. There wasn't a main character in this that I didn't like. Also some really great romances and just a lot of cuteness. Like I found myself smiling and just like being happy with everything so much, and I really had a lot of fun with that. And also this was my first proper introduction into historical romance, and it's made me fall in love with that genre, and I'm desperately wanting to read a lot more besides just this series. Those were all the Bridgerton books. These are all of them. They're not all in the right order. I apologize. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these books, what you thought of them. You can go into spoiler detail because I would love to discuss the events of these books in spoiler detail. Thank you very much. But I want to keep these videos spoiler free to like have them accessible to more people. So if you like want to discuss spoilers, just like leave a quick spoiler warning at the top of your comment so people who haven't read any of the books know not to read your comments. Like specifically mention which book you're spoiling, makes it easier. So please do that if you want to discuss this with me, which like I said I would love to do. And yeah, I guess I'll see you guys next time. Good.